Last week, I had the privilege to visit Guam and Palau out in the far west of the Pacific. Sits directly north of Australia and Papua New Guinea, east of the Philippines. I landed there to speak for a camp meeting, a 4-day camp meeting. With a heavy heart, knowing that just to the west of them, out in the islands of the Philippines, a missionary pilot who had grown up in Northern California, a nurse, a missionary nurse, Daniel being the pilot, Janelle. Let me put Daniel's picture on the screen just to honor. And there's Daniel to the pilot controls. And then Janelle, put her picture up. That's the second picture. There you go. The nurse riding. And the Yellow Bee helicopter transporting as missionaries the sick and the hurting and the dying. Disappeared from radar on February 28 while transporting a patient in the southwest region of the Philippines. Thousands of hours and thousands of square miles have been invested in searching for them, but they found only just a few items they believe to be from the helicopter. I took a picture. Let me put this picture on the screen. I stood with a group of student missionaries on the island of Palau. Some who had been there a year, some had been there 6 years, investing their life into letting young and old know about the hope that we have in the first coming of Jesus and hope that we have in the second coming of Jesus. As I spent my time with these student missionaries, some from Andrews University, some from Southern University, some from just spread out around the globe had gathered there to serve Jesus. And I walked away with this overwhelming thought. These men and these women, young as they are, have one purpose in their life. Well, I say dual purpose in their life. To bring honor to God and to bless other humans. That's it. That's all they existed for. Campion. We need more, not less, missionaries. A line shared to me, as I was talking to these missionaries, they said, never pity missionaries. Don't pity us. We have the highest privilege in serving the God of the universe full time with our lives. Don't pity us. Don't pity our poverty. Don't pity our separation from family. Don't pity us. I discovered as I talked to them this last week that these young men and young women have a sacred mindset. And I use that in all the fullness of its meaning. A sacred mindset. A righteous mindset. We were standing globally, relatively close to where two missionaries are still today missing in action. And these missionaries were faithful at their posts. And as I spoke to them, a line that I'd heard, a motto in the Coast Guard, came rolling through my head. I'll put it on the screen for you. You have to go out, but you don't have to come back. That's the mentality. That's the sacred mindset of a missionary. Hey, what about? That's the mindset of a fallen angel. The mindset of a missionary is a sacred one that says, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to go with my life. And if I don't come back, that's God's business. That's the three worthies. That's the Esther before the king. If I perish, I perish, but I must go. Oh, beloved, I stood with these young men and women, and I asked them in the camp meeting during the worship service to stand, and we applauded them. Because if there's anyone worth getting support. I told them, you're my heroes. You go out. A young lady that was part of my congregation in Michigan is one of those missionaries serving. She's been there 6 years. I said, what about your family back in Berrien Springs? She says, they're doing good. We stay in touch. Did you see them this year? No. I hope to this summer. But I'm here to serve. There was also another meaningful moment to me in what has now been made a beautiful story, filmed now as a story of forgiveness, Return to Palau. I stood in front of the house, the very house where former classmates of mine in college, the DePaiva family, had lived, when a man assaulted and murdered both the father, the mother, and the 11-year-old son, and then took captive their daughter and assaulted her. A day later, throwing her over, and I stood beside this narrow highway. I stood beside the guardrail that he pulled over and so hellishly threw her body over the embankment. She came to and climbed her way back up to the highway, raising her hand just high enough for a couple to find her and take her back to their house. I stood before the house where they had given their all, and I stood beside the highway. They gave their lives as this is the testimony of the brother. They gave their lives as missionaries. A worthwhile investment. A famous explorer and missionary, David Livingstone, died where now is Zambia, around May 1 of 1873. After his death, his team embalmed him, and in preparation to send him back to England, they carried his body to the coast, but they took his heart and buried it underneath a tree, claiming he gave his heart to Africa. It belongs here. 9 months later, his body finally arrived in England, April 18 of 1874, where he was buried in the Westminster Abbey. But his heart remains buried in African soil. So here's my appeal. Who's going to go? Who's going to go, beloved? Here at Campion, from this church and from this campus, is there one who would stand with me and say, I will go. I will go. Is there one? Is there one who will stand? God bless you. Is there any others who feel the tap of God on your heart? I'm going to invite our pianist just to the piano here. Do you feel called to go? Maybe it's not to Palau, to the Philippines, or to Africa, but it's to your neighborhood. Will you stand? Will you go for the cause of Jesus? Will you go